Hi, so for today's review, the first review on this channel, I got Ace Combat 6 Fires of Liberation, the 7th game of the franchise exclusive to the Xbox 360. And it's safe to say it's one of the most forgotten Ace Combat games along with Assault Horizon and Ace Combat mobile games. I did not even know they existed until 2 minutes before recording this. So what the hell even is Ace Combat Northern Wings? Anyways, back to Fires of Liberation, it has to be the weakest out of the main franchise. I mean, already nobody's talking about it, and no one ever said it's better than any of the other games, except one angry guy in the negative reviews of Skies Unknown saying this one was better, which is not. Just trust me on that. To me, Fires of Liberation feels like an experimental game because it's the only Xbox One, and all the games before were for PS2, so there was probably higher demand for good graphics, and from there, I feel like almost every game studio just focused on the graphics and left everything else to rot. But anyways, let's start with the actual review. Out of all the Ace Combat games I've played, I can safely say this one has the worst storyline progression. You'll see why. So the situation you're in, it's gonna take a while to explain this story. You're in the Aenean continent, and Slovakia launches an attack on another country, Emeria, using the element of surprise, and instantly takes the capital, which really makes me wonder how bad is Emeria's air defense. Like, come on! I get it's close to the sea or whatever, but Grace Maria, their capital, is pretty far away from Slovakia. And it's not specified anywhere they used to be allies or something, so we can assume whatever. And personally, I assume Emeria's radar range is 5 meters. 5 meters, because how the hell do you not catch a huge amount of military aircraft from a foreign country heading for your capital? Are American people nice and hate to make assumptions or something? Because every mission they send 3 countries' air forces worth of planes. And guess why Slovakia attacked? Economic trouble. Well, maybe if you didn't use the whole country's economy into making fighter jets and hiring like 1,000 pilots. I know it's strange real and you got shit like mercenary pilots in the history books, but at least in Slovakia, instead of angry strict parents forcing you to become a surgeon or a lawyer, you probably got them forcing you to become an Air Force pilot. I know I shouldn't be looking that deep, and usually I don't pick on Ace Combat games at all, because the pros are overwhelming compared to the cons, but this one rubbed me the wrong way because I wasted my damn nerves and time on this. But back to our story, what I like about this game is that we do have a bit of history and culture to Emeria. We have the palace with the Golden King statue, which is the armor of the Golden King, who was apparently a small and gentleman, and that armor convinced all his enemies to surrender, and afterwards they found such warmth in his smile and something like that. Really nice. It's actually the first time we have some culture in history that isn't about conflicts. In I think all games we only had stuff like these countries were allies or they weren't always close, and stuff like that. And never really anything like that. But also in the same time, Slovakia doesn't have anything about it. I'm pretty sure we barely ever enter Slovakia in the game, if we ever do at all. I don't really remember, sorry. The game's whole story didn't really catch me. But anyways, we barely know anything about Slovakia. We know they speak some sort of Slavic language and they aren't good with economy, because they spend all the taxpayers' money into making fighter jets. Like, jeez, if Emeria locked the fuck in and sent like 300 submarines all across Slovakia's territory, like, the fuck your planes gonna do, huh? Anyways, that's it for the whole situation of the actual continent there. Let's start with the actual story. The actual story starts with Melissa Herman and her Matilda Herman and her mother, Melissa Herman. Matilda is heading to a school road trip to the castle where the Golden King statue is located. Her mother says goodbye to her, which is when we also hear the dancing with the angels phrase that is used a lot in this game. And it comes from Melissa and her husband, because he'd call the fighters angels, and in frustration Melissa would tell him to go dance with his angels. Which, yeah, it's going great for now. We have some nice meaningful stuff here and there, and while little Matilda is on the road trip, when Matilda is on the road trip when Melissa sees some fighters and feels an explosion, and it turns out Grace Maria was absolutely fucked by the big ass flock of birds that Slovakia sent, and their bridge gets absolutely blown the hell up with little Matilda on there. And we kinda get a dramatic cutscene with Melissa falling to her knees screaming, "No! Matilda!" We've all seen at least one cutscene or movie with this exact concept. It's a bit overused, but hey, if my kid got blown up by some random stovies, I'd be mad too. And then she yapping about the Golden King's leaving her smile, the Golden King smile leaving her side and getting further away from her. No! So soon enough, we get some more lore on the Ulysses asteroid, and we found out that Slovakia was taking heat from that big ass rock, and also devastating the economy, which I guess they hit most air bases, and if that happens, yeah, probably over half of their economy is wiped off the face of the earth. And guess what? What that started to add fuel to the fire? A civil war. Why? Why waste more of the resources on a war after a huge asteroid harassed your country? And the whole world too, but that's not important. Why waste more of the resources that you don't even have? And after a few years of civil war, the generals took over. Such an ominous ass name. They don't even elaborate on who these people are. But all we know is that they are the people who decided all tax money goes into planes and also tanks. I forgot to mention there's also 200 tanks every mission too. And then they just randomly invaded Emeria, and all their military and people had to move to Kesed Island, or at least those who lived in Grace Maria. I have no idea. And also her husband is dead too. What a great way to start this story. And then they robbed the whole castle. Back to the story, little Matilda isn't actually dead. We hear from her on the radio flipping off some Slovakian. And now we're switching POVs, get used to it. This game has enough unnecessary ones. To Lieutenant Colonel Wojciech of the Slovakian Air Force, who just got off a train in Grace Maria, who got an injured leg or something, and he's just doing ground duty, I guess, as an intelligence officer. And poor man can't even sit down, and some little Timmy comes in and steals his suitcase, telling him to go dance with his angels. Which I'm adding this in only because at this point the dance with the angels phrase, it just lost its meaning. It's now used like go fuck yourself to stovies. Back to Melissa, she's going she's going head first, heading back to Grace Maria, and that's when she meets her new buddy Ludmilla. Hey, more on that later, because after Wojciech gets flipped off even more by Emerians, it's time for another POV, and this time it's a really useless POV of Sergeant Torch, who can shut the hell up, Sergeant Hosbaum, who shuts the hell up, and Sergeant McKnight. Yeah, all these people's screen time is them talking about robbing banks and how they want to do it, and apparently this fucker robbed banks before.
Apparently he was robbing banks before he joined the service. What an idiot.
No wonder America couldn't even keep their own country. Look at their damn soldiers. And another cutscene worth mentioning is this one where Wojciech keeps getting spit at by American prisoners, telling him to go fuck himself.
Go dance with the angels. Come on!
Where the player is briefly mentioned after 20 minutes worth of cutscenes. And a small intro for the guy you play as Garuda 1 or Talisman alongside your wingman Shamrock. yeah, that's about it, but it's worth mentioning because I hate when the main character, or at least the player who's supposed to be the main character, isn't even involved in the story. It's a bit of a problem, because a common misunderstanding with Ace Combat games is that, oh, your character is just a mute guy unaffected by G-Force, but the main character doesn't get a name, voice lines, and almost any story, because that's supposed to be the player. It's supposed to make you feel like you are Garuda 1, but this one just left out the main character fully. Like, Garuda 1 is just some fucking nobody in this story. He's so irrelevant. Anyways, again, back to Melissa and Ludmilla. Again, after they escape some terrorists from Emeria who have beef with Ludmilla, their engine runs out, and they're under an air battle, and we get again a mention of Garuda from an injured pilot, but that's not important because Garuda is not important. And they managed to get a tank ride from no one other than the bank robber squadron, from before. And now Ludmilla and Melissa finally make it to Grace Maria, but it's no longer the city that was before. It's now a heavily armed fortress. I know I shouldn't be on their side, but WS Slovakia, they did 10 times better than Emeria. Keep in mind, these people got their capital snatched in one day, bro. One day, the capital, the heart of your country, just snatched like that in one day. I feel like Slovakia deserves the land more if you can't even defend your own capital for one single day, man. They just let them have it. And now that we're done with those two, I have to address the Strigan team.
Yo, boom. The thing goes.
Because almost every mission, these motherfuckers won't leave you alone. And you know, they're kind of pathetic too. Their leader, Pasternak, arguably the worst name I've ever heard, was sent to Emeria to fight Garuda 1.
The reason of being sent here was to fight him.
No, not his squadron, no, not Emeria's Air Force, no, just Garuda 1. That has to be the most pathetic reason to be sent to another country. So her whole ass squadron, who got shot down like 4 times, you know, he got sent so he can lead that squadron. Yeah, so his whole ass squadron, who got shot down like 4 times by Garuda 1, can fight him and get shot down again. And the way he talks is so annoying too. We have here an interaction with Tosha, which is probably as bad as him, and he's like, "Hey Tosha, buddy, hand me an apple, Tosha. Hey Tosha, thanks, Tosha. Hey." He says his name like 20 times when he's speaking. No one else is around. We can't tell who you're addressing to, buddy. And he's overconfident too, talking about how he can get all the pussy in the world, and
Have any woman I want if I made the effort.
if he wants, how he's about to drown in all the pussy he could get in, Tosha.
And I was a woman? I would probably fall for him myself.
This guy just starts talking about how if he was a woman, he'd fall for him too. You're married to Ludmilla, buddy.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
I mean, hey, she's not around. Might as well shoot your shot, the worst he can say is no. And finally, Emeria is close to liberating the capital, but then the Strigan team pulls up with a new jet and like 50 UAVs, and we hear Pussy Slayer's one famous line: "Gentlemen, I do not believe a lady on Earth will be able to resist us now."
Bro, what the f is you even talking about, bro?
But it's like those full galaxy feats we now clown all the time, but in reality we all wanted that shit back in the day. But that statement could have been something. If your whole squad, not one, not two, the whole squad didn't get shot down like 4 times by one single random ass dude. Come on, I'd be embarrassed to lead that squadron, but hell yeah, at least he's choking on all that pussy, am I right? He's like a magnet attracting everyone, including Tosha. I can't get over that guy, I'm sorry. Anyways, so after he gets shot down again, we kinda take back Grace Maria, but there's another twist. Slovakia got an anti-asteroid weapon, which in the world setting makes sense, because Ania is pretty far away from Yuja. But come on, we already had Stonehenge, and Stonehenge was 10,000 times cooler than this bullshit, because Stonehenge for the entirety of Ace Combat 4 had a ton of build up, and each time it will shoot you had to get like under 2,000 feet or something like that. And then we have the Chandelier, who didn't do shit for the entire game. And yeah, the AA guns on that thing have aimbot too. It's so hard to break it. And then I don't know how Shamrock thinks of entering the chandelier and crashes in AWAC's Ghost Eye. Probably the worst AWAC's name in the whole franchise. Starts screaming after him. Well, even the others, I don't know who we have. We have some dude, Avalanche, and another one, Sky Kid, who are telling him to chill the fuck out.
You're off radar. Shamrock! Respond! Marcus! Marcus! Shamrock is down. All planes, get in there and save him! Shamrock is alive! He's gotta be alive! Ghost Eye, take it easy!
And funny thing, I crashed right after Shamrock crashed, so you had the Ghost Eye screaming, "No, Marcus!" And half a second later he was like, "Garuda one down." Actual hilarious timing on that one. And yeah, you're forced to enter that gun, and then the barrel of the gun, that's probably the tightest space you ever put a fighter jet in the whole series. The main character always pulls up some bullshit like that in the end, but goddamn, that was crazy. And the story itself, it's not that bad. It's a bit detached from everything that's actually going on. It just feels like random side quests, and the storytelling is also pretty atrocious. Like, there's nothing related to the actual conflicts or the main character. He gets like a little shout out here and there, and that's all. Nothing that interesting. I'd go lower because I wasted around 50 minutes watching all those cutscenes again, but I'd give the whole story a 6 out of 10. It's not that bad, it's not that terrible. That story segment was so long, I apologize. But now it's time for the gameplay, which is probably the worst part of this game. The gameplay itself is standard. It's combat arcade style gameplay with the jet physics and stuff. Except now it's a bit harder to shoot missiles because they made the missile physics a bit more realistic, which I don't mind. And they also added the high G turn, which was pretty fun. Ace Combat in itself, it's really fun. But that also really depends on the missions, and this is where it just goes downhill. The missions are awful, genuinely awful. So first of all, they're extremely long. You can see the timer on top of the screen. The average mission is always over 20 minutes, and well, not trying to compare it much with other Ace Combat games, the missions are usually maximum of 20 minutes, not the other way around. And in this one, there's missions who are even almost 50 minutes, and that's probably because the game wasn't really that long. The whole game only had 15 missions, which isn't that bad. They still managed to make the character achieve the main goal of liberating Grace Maria without any extra BS. But for some reason, they tried making the game longer by making the missions really long and boring. And they didn't really succeed. It took me around 9 to 10 hours to finish this whole game. It usually takes 15 hours for one, which it wasn't that short, but for how bad it tried to stretch the game, come on, buddy. And this isn't about experience, because Ace Combat gameplay isn't that hard. My first game, Belkan War, took like 13 hours, and then Ace 4, who took 4 hours, and Ace 5, who took almost 20. This isn't about being good at it, because Ace Combat isn't hard. Now, onto the experience, it's unenjoyable as hell. The game puts in front of you a ton, and I mean a fuck ton of targets. Like I said before, 3 countries air forces worth of planes every missions, and another 100 tanks. And yeah, there's a pretty big number of targets in other games, of course not to the degree of these. But in reality, there's only a few red targets. In this one, almost all the targets are red, which makes them feel less important just because there's so many of them. And it gets really, really repetitive because the whole gameplay doesn't have any gimmicks at all. You just shoot at targets, unlike the other games where you do that too, but you also have some cooler missions. For example, Ace Combat 5, there's one mission where you needed to navigate through some AA systems and take some pictures of a mine, and another where you have to time your attacks with your squadron, and many more, which really make me look forward to Ace Combat as a game. And also those crazy new inventions that in this game were okay, just nothing really memorable. The only thing I can remember is the Gaian flying carrier, which was cool, but they had a really short screen time and not really much build up. Which you don't always need build up for these things, but the mission where you destroy it didn't really feel that intense because it was incredibly annoying and frustrating. And also the chandelier, which wasn't interesting. It was kind of nice. You entered that thing. That was sick, but that's it. And the CFA-44 jet that Pasternak was flying, but it seriously was Sirius was probably one of the midest jets in Ace Combat. It didn't really do anything, it just had stealth and a ton of UAVs around it, and it was fast. And I admit, you don't really need creative missions or some wild shit happening. Take for example Balkan War, it had no gimmicks and barely any new inventions other than the ADFX and the Excalibur and the XBO bomber. But it still managed to be one of the greatest Ace Combat games. And getting back to the missions of Fires of Liberation, they were really frustrating. First of all, they were already boring and unnecessarily long, so in the game you are given a crazy amount of missiles, which beats the purpose of it, because before you had to like save some for later, use your gun, and it was a bit more intense. But now towards the end you ended up with like 500 missiles, and that makes the game super easy because obviously it's easier to shoot a missile rather than trying to aim the gun. And as I say, extremely frustrating because this time a ton the opponents around you, well, a ton of them are shooting missiles at you every second. So you have about 20 missiles at you every second, and trust me, hearing the missile alarm every second is annoying as hell. I've never been so relieved finishing a mission. The gameplay is just awful and frustrating. For me it gets a 4 out of 10. I really hate it. It's boring and frustrating and too stretched out and really repetitive. The graphics are obviously the strong point of this game, but because they were pretty messed up because I'm playing on an emulator, no way in hell I'd ever get an Xbox 360, and the resale price of any old game isn't sold anymore. Trust me, I've seen like $80 for a PS2 game. It's wild. So the thing is, Xbox 360 ISOs are pretty broken, and the PS3 ones too, and the emulator is also ass. I use Xenia Canary, but I had to use the Xenia Manager, which made emulation a bit easier, but it's still broken. First of all, there were holes in the ground, but thankfully they had a fix. But that's not all the problem. When you look up in the sky, there's a weird block around the sun, and also the clouds are pixelated, and the cutscene's audio doesn't overlap properly, so the audio is really fucked up on those. But that's it for the audio, and it's still playable. Like that, and not a lot of problems. And I tried to play it for the review again, but the new update of Xenia Manager won't allow to modify the settings of a single game, so I couldn't fix the holes in the ground. And I know there's a recompiled version of this game, but it's pretty sketchy to me. So first of all, you need to open a Windows batch file, and well, I have an irrational fear of malware, like pretty bad, and I know pretty about malware fucks with the command prompt, so even if I open it myself, I still get uneasy. And all that process is too sketchy for me, and then you have to install a ton of other programs, which I'll give it to the tutorial. Most of them are legit, but then you have to put a random ass GitHub program into the System32 folder, and again, I'm too afraid to even touch or come near that folder. And guess what, at the end you still need an ISO of the game, which the game is an Xbox exclusive, so it's just an emulator with extra steps. It doesn't fixes all the problem, it only fixes the holes and the cutscenes, but the missile trail is non-existent, and the sky is still the same, and there's still white shadows on some of the cutscenes, but it's a work in progress, and it still fixes the biggest problems. But I won't ever be doing that. It's probably nothing sketchy, but I get too freaked out by those things, and I really wouldn't want to fuck around with the System32. But enough of that, the graphics are really good, ignoring the glitches, and they really nailed the realistic look. The fighter models look amazing, the interface and the HUD look pretty clean. The only thing I didn't really like was the characters popping in the corner like YouTuber reactions, but that's not a big deal, honestly. The whole world looked more real, and the map was great, and some of the views were pretty cool, and the graphics when you're playing overall are just amazing. They've done a great job, except for the missile trail stuff, because as I said, you're having like 20 missiles shot at you every second. So the sky was just filled up by those, but I'm sure it just makes it more realistic or whatever. But my biggest complaint is the models of the characters. They somehow look worse than the PS2 ones. The hair on those look awful. They look like noodles or something like that. And the characters are trying to be more realistic, but it just looks soulless as hell. The details on the clothes look worse, and the faces that look like they're made out of Play-Doh or something like that. They really could have went back to the Unsung War style of characters, but overall the graphics were still amazing. I say a 9.5 out of 10 only for those models, but the rest was pretty damn good. I'm not gonna stretch this out anymore because it's getting boring. The music wasn't bad, but not outstanding. I get it's background music, you're not supposed to focus on it, you're still supposed to feel it like it's there and know when it's missing, but the gameplay was so boring, so I started focusing on the song, and it's not bad again, it's just generic action game background music. It's not that intense and definitely not memorable. I can't remember a single song from it. And even listening back, it's nothing that great like Ace Combat 5, which almost all the soundtrack, it's a bit forgettable, but it's so great. Or the Balkan War, which arguably got the best soundtrack in the whole game. I tell the games have different vibes and themes they are going for, but overall I rate the music an 8 out of 10. It's not that bad, but it's not unique. And now we are at the end of the review. Sorry this is so long and boring, but calculating the final score of this game based on each rating, I give it an honest 7 out of 10. It's not that bad of a game in some areas, but for me personally it was quite unenjoyable in most parts. But again, it's not that bad, it's just a bit mid. I see why almost nobody's talking about it, but anyways, thanks for watching, and if anyone made it this far, see you next time, if you, I hope, I guess.